Hello everybody, hi, my name's Claudia Lefebvre and I am the Shapeshifter, nutritional therapist and eating psychology coach. And we're here today to talk about the 6 keys to hormone health. But before we begin, let me just start by saying thank you so much to the 10,000 people who watched the video a couple of weeks ago on sugar. I was overwhelmed by how many of you there were, and thank you so much for all the positive feedback, and please keep asking your questions. I'm delighted to answer them and I'm here to help. What I'm aiming to do is to give you information that is not going to be in the standard magazines. What I'm really trying to do is apply the biology, apply the psychology, and to provide really interesting different nutritional information, provide information in a way that maybe you haven't thought of before. But talking about magazines, and while we're waiting for people to join, I just need to give a little plug that I'm in Closer magazine next Thursday, so if you buy Closer, there should be an eating psychology good old mention there. So, oh thanks, Polly's here, and Polly's shared the video from last week. And Polly, if you wouldn't mind also sharing our social media links. So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and obviously Facebook. And I'm delighted to communicate with you through all these channels. We provide different information across the different channels. So let me know also what you'd like me to talk about next time. I'm thinking of doing a Twitter poll. And I want to know if you're ready to be hearing about Beachbody Ready, about getting ready for summer, or if you'd rather hear about happy foods and foods to help us with our emotional, mental well-being. So that's what I'm thinking about in 2 weeks' time, but let me know. Now, today we're going to be talking about hormones, and hormones are really complex. I mean, you could study PhD after PhD for your entire life and still only know a tiny, tiny fraction. But what I'm going to do is really try, my aim is to distill it down and I hope make it really understandable and relevant to you and give you some insights that maybe you haven't heard before. So please give me lots of thumbs up and lots of hearts to show that you're understanding what I'm talking about. And if it's not clear, please ask me your questions. It's something as well you might want to go back to and look over in more detail, watch a couple of times maybe. So thanks for the thumbs up, guys. Okay, so let's get started. So the first key to hormonal health, and the reason I'm starting with this is probably the most obvious to you, but it has the biggest oomph and makes the biggest impact and the fastest difference to PMS and menopausal symptoms. And any guesses? It's sugar and alcohol. Now, I can tell you, I've worked on many a detox retreat. I used to work on 7-day residential retreats where there would be no sugar, no alcohol, no caffeine, no wheat, no dairy for 7 days. And the ladies, they would arrive and they would be saying, oh, Claudia, my night sweats are terrible, my hot flushes are dreadful. And by day 6 or 7, they had dramatically improved. I mean, it can be very, very quick just from cutting down the sugar. And then the proof of the pudding was always on the last night, we would have enjoy a glass of Prosecco or a glass of Cava. And that night, the next morning they would say, oh my gosh, Claudia, the hot flushes and the night sweats came back last night. And I would say, see, now you understand the correlation. And so sugar can make a huge difference. And also in terms of PMS. Hi, Deborah. I get my ladies into a really stable state. And then what happens is, for example, in December, Christmas gets in the way, and I warn them. I say, watch out for January because it makes a huge, huge difference to the hormones. And everyone's been warned, and lo and behold, it really does make a difference. So it's something, cutting down on the sugar is something you can do. We talked about it a lot in the last video, but have a watch of that video and just do it as an experiment. You could do it between ovulation and your period. or even if you're menopausal, just do it for 10 days and see what happens. It really, really can make a difference. As can caffeine, but only to certain people. So in some people, caffeine can increase estrogen levels, but not for everybody. So it's working out what works for you and what's right for your body, and what isn't agreeing with it from a hormonal point of view. So I hope that makes sense. It might, we talked about last time about how I hate the fact that the media are saying, sugar is the new tobacco. It creates so much shame around it. So what I want you to do is see sugar in the spirit of curiosity. See it as an experiment. We're detectives. How is sugar impacting my hormones? And what happens when I cut it out for 10 days? Okay, so that's the first key. Welcome this evening. Hi there. So we're talking about the 6 keys to hormonal health. We've covered the first one, and now on to the second. Now, the reason I put this key as the second key is because it relates to sugar, but it's really about managing stress and the adrenal glands. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the adrenal glands, but they're the tiny little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they produce all your adrenaline and cortisol. So when we're under stress, we need more adrenaline and more cortisol, so they get really busy. Maybe increase in size in some studies. And then at some point, if we're not careful, they can become a little bit fatigued and tired. Now, interestingly, there are 3 places in the body that produce our sex hormones. So they are the ovaries, the adrenal glands, and the fat cells. So when our adrenal glands are very distracted, having to produce more and more adrenaline and cortisol to help us cope with stress, what happens is that pathway for producing the sex hormones is diverted. The technical term is called the cortisol steal. And so instead of producing the sex hormones that we need, the body has to compensate. The adrenals have to produce the stress hormones instead. And this is particularly, you can see this very, very obviously in menopausal women. And as the ovaries are shutting down, the adrenals aren't producing the sex hormones like they should be because of stress. What happens is it all comes down to the fat cells, and that's why the middle tire develops during menopause. And it also, I'm sure you've noticed when you're stressed that the PMS is worse, and it's all because of the adrenals. Now, really, we should do an entire talk on the adrenal glands, but ways to manage it, to top up your adrenal bank balance, if you like. Vitamin C, magnesium, relaxation, yoga, meditation, all the good things that that top you up, that help you feel better, that help you manage stress, will help your adrenal glands. But it's something that I look at in a lot of detail with my menopausal ladies. Right. So, guys, that's the second key. And I just wanted to say that in London, I have 2 appointments left, 1 appointment left in 2 weeks' time. So do get in touch if you'd like to come and see me. And I've also been very busy writing a free ebook. So that's underway. The first draft is done, and I'm still at the stage where I'm sending it around to a few people, trying to get feedback and before it goes to the designer. But the ebook is all about the first step of my 15 steps. So it's unsticking your I'm stuck story. So really excited to share that with you. Now, the third key for hormonal health is appreciating the cyclical nature. We are cyclical creatures. We work in cycles. And so often, menopause is seen as a medical condition, needing treatment, needing medical intervention, when really it's a rite of passage. And it's your rite of passage to becoming a wise woman. And it's a shame in our society as it is at the moment. You aren't revered as you should be necessarily. but it's trying not to resist it, because that resistance creates stress and exacerbates symptoms in the body. And then also in terms of, you know, women with their periods, it's a cycle. And I have to say, I don't have it right here, but I'm really enjoying Rebecca Campbell's book, Rise Sister Rise, at the moment. And she talks about, you know, how our productivity is different during different parts of our cycle, our creativity, our letting go, our shedding of emotions, you know, all happen on a cyclical nature, which leads me onto the fourth key to hormonal health, which is to honor the cyclical nature of nourishment. So as we go through our cycle, we actually need different nutrients at different times. And this can really, really be fundamental to helping you manage those PMS symptoms. So I don't know, for example, if you're anemic or you suffer with low iron, that your iron levels are going to drop. They're going to drop the week before your period. So that's when you can have some red meat if you eat meat, or, you know, Floridix if you would normally take a supplement, or Spartone, or, you know, even just chlorella is a great source of iron for the vegetarians, and, you know, apricots, spinach, beetroots. Another thing that tends to drop the week before the period is magnesium. And I just see a question here. Adele would like to ask about waking up at 4 a.m. Now, this is known as PMS, you know, insomnia. And so many of my ladies come to me and they say they wake up at 4 a.m. They might go back to sleep at about 5:36. Then you feel even worse when the alarm goes off at 7. But it's finding the correlation, because so often this happens the week before the period. And I believe it's due to a drop in the magnesium levels. So, Carol, what I would recommend is some liquid magnesium at night before this happens. Now, you don't have to have the liquid magnesium every single night, because these things, you know, I always think of my children when I think of insomnia. But if you get 3 good nights, it sets a pattern. And so as soon as that pattern is broken and there's one bad night, then that's when to take the magnesium. Because you don't want that pattern becoming 3 nights, because 3 nights sets the pattern. So I hope that makes sense. But definitely a liquid magnesium before bed is very helpful. And topping up the magnesium levels before your period is generally a great thing to do. I'm also a big fan of magnesium flakes and having a magnesium bath, which helps the magnesium go straight into the muscles. Another vitamin, or mineral, a vitamin, is the B vitamins to help with mental health. We can drop our B vitamins just before our period. And I had a question messaged to me from someone saying that between ovulation and her period, she can feel a bit down, a bit depressed. So, Karen, for you, I would definitely recommend you take some B vitamins between ovulation and your period. And you might just notice that that might be all you need to help correct that. It's just tuning in and working out what our body needs at different times. So guys, if you've got any questions, please fire away your questions. And please also like and share my page, share my videos. I'm really trying to provide a fantastic service for you and really valuable information that I hope will benefit you. So, moving on to the 5th key. Now, this is quite different. You won't have read about this in a magazine for sure. But going back to how actually menopause is a rite of passage, and so often we can feel very ill with the menopause. It may not be about the menopause, okay? Because the hormones, the elevation in hormones can trigger certain conditions, which we put down to the menopause, but it's not actually the menopause. So, got two scenarios to give you. One scenario is you've got excessive flushing. Maybe you're developing hives. You're feeling the heat. You're getting a lot of a very reactive skin. Well, actually, it could be that the elevated estrogen levels have triggered histamine. And it does happen that during the menopause, women can become histamine intolerant because that elevation in estrogen increases histamine and it lowers DAO levels. Now, DAO enzyme is the enzyme that is needed to break down the histamine. So we don't want the levels dropping, but the estrogen will drop the levels of the DAO enzyme while at the same time increasing the histamine. So I know I've mentioned histamine intolerance with regards to sugar in the last one, but actually also with PMS, I see a lot of my ladies with histamine intolerance. They are really suffering with periods and PMS, and when they reduce the histamine foods, it can really, really make a big difference. Hi, Monica. Another factor that we put down to menopause, or even after having children, at times of great hormonal change, our thyroid can become very affected and we can become hypothyroid. So you might just think that your exhaustion, maybe you're feeling a lot of brain fog, maybe you're losing your hair, like just hair's falling out, maybe your eyebrows are thinning, you're constipated. Hi, Tamara. Things are changing in your body and you're just putting it down to the menopause, but it could be thyroid. Now, with the thyroid, it's very important, if you're going to test your thyroid, that you ask for 3 different hormones to be tested, because often with the NHS and the GHA in Gibraltar, they'll test the TSH, which is your brain, the thyroid stimulating hormone in your brain. But we want to know what's happening to the thyroid gland itself, which is the T4, and also the active thyroid hormone, which is the T3. So we want TSH, T4, and T3 to be measured. It's not an expensive test, and maybe you decide to do it privately. Edith, I've seen a great question from you. I'm going to come back to that at the end, just because I'm on the 5th key, moving on to the 6th key, and then I'll come on to questions at the end. Hi, Maku, but please ask me all your questions as they pop into your head, and I'll answer them at the end. So guys, that was the 5th key. So moving on, I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. Moving on to the 6th key now. And this is the progesterone and estrogen. Hi, Cynthia. The progesterone and estrogen balancing. Now, this is very individual. So I want to talk about foods that disrupt the hormones first. We've talked about sugar, alcohol, caffeine. But for some people, wheat can disrupt the hormone levels if you're sensitive to it. So it's never about saying this food is great for everybody and this food is bad for everybody. It doesn't work like that. It's how each of our bodies responds individually to the different foods. But I want to tell you about one lady, and she probably had the most dramatic reaction to avoiding wheat that I've ever seen. So I got her off the wheat for 10 days, only 10 days. I saw her on day 11, and she came to me and she said, Claudia, I have lost 12 centimeters from my waist in 10 days, and that was all from holding on to fluid. And she'd had a few weeks later, she told me she'd had an ovarian cyst and she was about to have surgery on it. And a few weeks later, she went for another scan before the surgery, and it had shrunk by 0.5 centimeter. And that's because wheat was no good for her. It really didn't agree with her. And for her, it was having an estrogenic effect on her body. It was increasing her estrogen levels. Now, I've seen this a lot as well with fibroids, with clients with large fibroids. So again, not for everybody, but for some people. Okay, Michela, I will answer that question I'll come on to that. So progesterone, estrogen balancing, right? We're avoiding the wheat. If it's a problem for you, we're avoiding the sugar, the alcohol for sure. But what can we be eating to help and support the hormone balance? Well, fiber, making sure you've got enough fiber is really important because it binds those excess estrogens and eliminates them from the system. You know, if we suffer with constipation as the stool travels round and it's a very slow transit time, there's more chance of those hormones being reabsorbed, reassimilated back through the blood vessels. So we want good transit time. We want everything moving properly through with plenty of fiber in your diet. There's as well lots of estrogenic, you know, mildly estrogenic, phytoestrogens they're called, mildly estrogenic foods. So for example, linseeds, also known as flax seeds, are wonderful food because they exert a mild estrogenic effect. And if this is a receptor, they come and attach to the estrogen receptor without being as strong as a normal estrogen molecule would be. However, for some people, this is still too strong. So it's a very individual thing. But what I would recommend is that you have 1 tablespoon of linseeds a day, whether it's for PMS or for menopause, and see how you get on. If your body responds, if it's excessive, if it's making the estrogen levels a little bit too high, you will notice sore boobs, basically. And I've only seen it in 1 or 2 cases out of hundreds, but it's something to be aware of. And it's just that not every food suits every person. You know, when we're looking at proper hormone balance as well, something to be aware of is that the pesticides in our foods, you know, can exert, they're called xenoestrogens, and they can also mimic estrogen and increase our estrogen in our bodies. So, you know, as can the plastics from plastic water bottles. So, it's difficult to go fully organic, I know that. But what I love is EWG. I don't know if you've heard of them. It's ewg.org. It's the Environmental Working Group in America. And they've come up with the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So the Clean 15 are the fruit and vegetables that don't seem to take so much of the pesticides. So if you can't buy organic food, buy the Clean 15. Focus on the Clean 15 fruit and veg. And they are things like avocado, mango, cabbage, cauliflower was quite interesting because broccoli has always been on the Dirty Dozen list, but cauliflower doesn't seem to take it so much. Whereas on the Dirty Dozen, you've got to be careful with fruits like strawberries, which have, you know, those fine hairs that trap all the pesticides. Peaches, apples have been sprayed about 20 times. So apples are really worth getting organic or even peeling if you can't. And there are certainly some hormones that can help with balancing. So what I'm going to do now is look through your questions. Let me just get them up here. All right, pages are. Trying to find it on the. Okay. 6 keys. Here we are. Okay, I'll definitely have to figure out how to change my face at the beginning of the thing. Okay. Hi, so Tamara. Hi, I'm 38, but my hormones seem to be playing up. My periods seem to be lasting forever, and my BP raised. Oh, okay. Tamara, you know, our hormones, the average age of menopause is 51, and our hormones can start changing about 10 to 15 years before that. And I wonder why the blood pressure is raised. I'm trying to think of the link between the blood pressure. It would be interesting to see what your other markers are. If you could get a full blood count, you know, get your insulin, let's see what your cholesterol is. let's just look at, ask the GP to investigate further. It's definitely worth finding out, just ruling out a couple of things. Yeah, it's difficult though. There are some wonderful adaptogens, which are supplements, which if the estrogen's too high, it will bring it down. If the progesterone's too low, it will bring it up. But I would want to know a little bit more about what's going on first before I recommend those. So I'm not going to specify those right now. Ashley, wondering if you've got any advice for women with PCOS. The general advice is to eat healthy and exercise, but Ashley, with PCOS, the most important thing is to balance blood sugar levels, because the insulin can be out of kilter. So managing the sugar and getting blood sugar levels balanced is absolutely the best thing you can do. And I would also recommend some phytoestrogens. So that those are like chickpeas and lentils and maybe a little bit of soy, because they are very high in something called sex hormone binding globulin, which is SHBG. And that sex hormone binding globulin, it goes around and it binds and deactivates excess testosterone and luteinizing hormone in the body, which can be elevated with the PCOS. I actually had one client with PCOS who she was, oh gosh, I can't remember the word they used. Anyway, basically it went away, but I told her it will always come back if you. She was, oh gosh, the diagnosis was reversed. That was the technical term. Her diagnosis was reversed. But that was just wonderful, because she was trying for a baby and everything. It was just fantastic for her. So happy. But it is amazing what you can do with the diet and PCOS. But their first port of call is always balance the blood sugar levels, and acupuncture is very helpful as well. Ada, I like the idea of taking supplements as and when. I was always under the impression that taking them on and off would not work, but it makes sense to take them before a period. Okay, great. Yes, Ada, I agree. You see, I'm always a food first person, and I don't like to be beholden to supplements all the time, which is why I definitely mix and match. But the risk of taking them between ovulation and your period is that you completely forget to take them in the second half, and then you suddenly realize it's too late. Michaela, should I be taking any particular supplements? Okay, Michaela, it really depends what your symptoms are. Sage is very helpful for flushes and for night sweats. Agnus castus is very helpful for, that's the adaptogen for balancing out the progesterone and the estrogen. There are black cohosh. I'm a big fan of GABA, because it just helps with anxiety and stress and calming as well. So whenever, it's not, again, the GABA is not to take every day, it's just to take when you feel stressed or when you feel that there's a surge in the hormones. But that can be very helpful. Hello. Cynthia, what do I think about the blood group diet? I think it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. I think it's a very individual thing. Now, I'm just seeing more questions here. Sorry, let me just, for some reason they're not on my, okay. Fiona, I'm not sure how relevant my question will be. I'm about to embark on healthy, clean eating plan. I can't read. Also, Fiona, sorry, I also wanted to have my sugar cravings rise. Yes, so the sugar cravings before your period, that is down to something called PMSC, and it's just the blood sugar levels change just before our periods. That's completely normal. But if you have some protein with every meal and fibre to balance it out, then it will definitely help. Hi, Caroline, I'm nearly 52, Perry. And I do know that weight gain is common. Yeah, and that's adrenals as well. So if you've just joined, if you listen back to the video, the second key to hormonal health is managing the adrenals, which is stress, because otherwise we rely on our fat cells to produce estrogen rather than, rather than our adrenals producing estrogen. So hello Claire, hi Sue. So let me just quickly look through again if I may. Hi Maku. Yes. So when you started your body change, that's right. You see, a lot of changes can happen as a result of the hormones. So we put it down to menopause, but it could be exactly increased food intolerances or histamine intolerance, or the thyroid can change. So it's not all about the menopause. It becomes a blanket term. But it's really, really worth delving deeper and investigating whether your symptoms are actually related to the menopause in general or something a little bit deeper. So, guys, I hope that's answered your questions. I'm just trying to look through, see if there's anything else. Here's a bit more. Okay. Oh, Moku, sorry, I couldn't read all your message before, but I've got it here now. If for reflux, okay, so you became intolerant to all dairy products and wheat, and you can hardly eat anything because of reflux problems. Is there anything you can do to control reflux? Okay, oh, that's really, so I would first of all investigate whether there are any more food intolerances going on, whether it is just wheat and dairy or if there's something else irritating. So you could do an A200 blood test. If you're in Gibraltar, you can do that at GibLab. I would also go to your GP and just test for H. pylori. Just check your stomach is working properly. And then check you don't have an underlying bacterial infection there. And then something like aloe vera can actually be very helpful just to coat and line the whole complete digestive tract before eating. And I'm sure you probably get a little bit of anxiety around eating now, and a little bit of anxiety. The stomach might be feeling a bit tense. And a chamomile tea or a ginger tea before eating can just relax the stomach to allow for food to come. And then I'm sure as well, about sitting up properly and not lying down, lying on lots of pillows to try and keep a little bit elevated to help with that. And I would also go and see a cranial osteopath just to check in terms of structural. So there are lots of things you can do, but it's difficult to be very specific without knowing more. Okay. So... Oh, brilliant. Fiona, this is a great question. About to embark on healthy, clean eating plan. Much needed your advice is wonderful. Great. Delighted to be here. Would like advice on how to eliminate water retention or bloating. Yeah, that's a really tricky one. So many women, it's so common to get fluid retention and bloating. Make sure, first of all, that you are drinking enough, that you are hydrated, because often the body will hold on to water when we're dehydrated. And then things like some lovely parsley tea can be very helpful. It's a natural diuretic, but it's really common. And of course, the food intolerances. This lady that I mentioned when she came off the wheat, she lost 12 centimeters off her waist in 10 days, and that was it. Wheat and food intolerances, foods we're intolerant to, can exert huge osmotic pressure in the body. And I've had ladies where, their rings have needed to be changed, their watches, they no longer get sock marks because of the fluid that can be held from underlying food intolerances it can be enormous. And they'll come to me having lost inches, but not that much weight on the scales because it is just fluid. So I hope that makes sense. Guys, I think I've answered all your questions, but please do keep them coming. If you're watching this video after the event, please feel free to add a comment in the comments, and I'll reply when I see it. So guys, have a great evening. If you found this video helpful, please do share it. Please like my page. Please click to get notifications. and have a wonderful couple of weeks. See you in a couple of weeks and look forward to that. Okay, bye.